Alrighty, and we are live. Alrighty. Good evening, everyone. Hi, Cynthia. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you so much for accepting the call to be this week's guest mentor and for actually showing up. Thank you so much.
It is an honor.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'll just jump right into it. Good evening, good morning, good whatever time of the day it is, wherever you are, whether you're catching us live or you're catching the recording. My name is Noeline. I am a strategic supply chain leader and a growth mentor. Today, I am showing up as your host for this mentorship session, and I am joined by Cynthia Mwangi. I want to read her bio, so she and I are going to leave the screen for a little bit as I read her. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I have a question before we jump into today's mentorship session. You're the one who's usually interviewing. How does it feel to not be interviewed, kind of?
It's usually very, very strange because I'm used to being the other person. So half the time I was like, but can I be the one asking questions? Because that's I feel like that's one of my mentors tells me that's my superpower. So I usually now feel weird when I'm the one who's being asked the questions.
We'll try to make it not weird today and make it as comfortable as possible.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today's session is on mastering corporate communication strategies for individuals and leaders. So the reason why we're crafting it this way is I think there's this general mindset that corporate communication is for brands, for businesses, organizations, corporates, and not that we should be adopting as individuals and as leaders. So I will jump into it with the subject matter expert this week, and I'll just hand it over to you. And I'm going to put the presentation center stage.
Right.
Over to you, Cynthia.
Thank you very, very much. So my name is Cynthia Mwangi, as you've heard, and I'll just jump into it so that we leave a bit more time for the questions, if there'll be any. And so you've read my bio, of course, and I know Noeline has already done part of the work of explaining who I am and the reason why we're here. Now, one of the things that I like starting with when it comes to corporate communication is the idea that the single biggest problem is in communication is the illusion that it has taken place, which is true. We all assume that we are communicating, but we somehow do not actually fully communicate. And hence why the need for one to have very clear agendas and be very effective in ensuring that they're able to communicate. Now, one of the things you'll ask is, what are the key principles of effective corporate communication for both individuals and leaders? And one of the things that are very clear on this is, I'll give an example for individuals. And both, actually, what happens is this applies to both individuals and leaders because some of this share the same basis as far as principles are concerned. And one of those is active listening. Now, normally, we're all wired to listen to respond. And that's one of those defaults for 844. We were always taught, ukiskiza, you're listening, but you want to respond really fast. But that's not how it is. This is one of those skills that you have to intentionally learn how to do. So you have to actively listen. That means paying attention to what other people are saying and even showing that you are engaging. It means asking for clarification to ensure you actually understand what this person is saying, and even more importantly, avoiding any interruptions or even dominating the conversation, because the idea behind it is this conversation is not yours. The other thing that's very, very important is having empathy and understanding. um, Empathy, of course, is not sympathy. Empathy is being able to consider the other person's perspective, and how it is that they are showing up. That means you show empathy and understanding for their feelings, for their concerns, and you even understand where they're coming from. That means, even from your perspective, you tailor their message to their needs and interests. And the other thing is the honesty and adaptability. Now, the reason why I added that is because you have to be very honest when you are having these conversations. And it's things that people take for granted. Being very honest and being adaptable. So, adaptability means noticing the person's point of view and changing with their time. You could be talking to an older person, a younger person, you being able to adjust to who they are and how they communicate is very, very key. It's a key principle when it comes to communications. Now, the other thing is having a clear vision and communication. Obviously, that goes without saying. So, having a clear vision is understanding the message that you want to communicate, and then at that moment, being able to envision how that entire thing is going to go, and then curating that communication to that effect. So, you understand how you're going to start, what you're going to say next, a clear step by step explaining, showing, and giving examples so there's a clear vision behind it. And the other more important thing is effective feedback. That means you're able to ask the person that you're talking to, how was your experience? And have you understood? Have you understood what it is that I was trying to tell you? Which parts of my explanation did make sense? Which ones made sense? How can I make it better for you? Now, that for me is one of the most important things, because again, that's a lesson that none of us have been taught to do. You have to pick it up as you go. It's learning how to effectively ask for feedback and take it. You could be given the feedback, but you're not taking it. So taking it for me is very, very important, and learning how to leverage on it and moving forward. How then are you able to make it better for yourself? Now, I know one of the things that will come up would be the challenges in developing such communication skills. And that would be the biggest fear is usually the fear of one, listening skills, which then how do you overcome it? You build your knowledge and expertise. Some of the skills are things that you learn. It's things that you pick up as you grow and as you mature in communications, both for individuals and for leaders. And more importantly, especially if you're a leader, it's such an important and integral thing to have good listening skills, because most of the time you'll spend your entire leadership listening. So if you do not understand how to listen, then that needs to be something that you're very intentional about learning. The other thing is difficulty in writing clearly. Then what does that look like? It means you're not able to articulate yourself and communicate in writing about what it is that you want to say and how you want to say it. How best do you do it? I'll take you back to what we used to do in school. One of the things that were very dominant was you were told if you want to communicate better, you have to read more. So one of the key things that you want to do is read as much as you can. And even more importantly, keep a journal. And you're not keeping a journal because you want to write all the frustrating things. It's because you want to train your brain to be writing these things. And over time, you'll notice your writing skills improve and how you articulate yourself become even better. Now, the other thing, of course, again, I had said was more importantly, seeking and looking for feedback. Very difficult thing for leaders to do, but it's very, very important. Now, this could be from your colleagues, from your friends, from your mentors, from your board of persons. And I say board because I believe every single individual is supposed to have a board. Those are the people who are guiding your life and your career. They're the people you take presentations to about the next decisions that you're making about your life. So if you have a board, talk to your board, ask for feedback, find out how that looks like. And of course, that is some of the key principles for effective corporate communication for both individuals and leaders. Now, I like incorporating memes and conversations because it makes things move a little easier and better. And I know you've seen this where someone says, "You never understood me." Another person goes, "But I had no clue what you were talking about." Why would you say that? Because that happens a lot when we're communicating. You think you're communicating, but then you are really, truly, genuinely not. So, what are some of the strategies for crafting personal communication strategies, and especially within a corporate setting? Well, I can tell you one of those things is identifying your objectives. And that is very clear. Why are you trying to communicate? What are you trying to achieve? What is the aim of it? What decisions? How are you enhancing your corporate image? What exactly do you want to achieve from this? So you'll ask yourself like those questions. What do you want to achieve through your communication? What are you aiming to build relationships for influencing decisions to enhance your professional image? Why are you communicating? Now, you ask these questions. The minute you get an answer, then you're able to do it properly. The other thing is you have to know your audience. Who are you communicating with? And what are their needs? What are their interests? What their expectations? And then you have to tailor your message accordingly to be able to ensure that you are getting to where you need to go. Now, the other thing, as I said, is assess your strengths and weaknesses. This goes back to when you're seeking for feedback, your board or your friends and your relatives and your colleagues and the people that you consider your mentors will always assess your strengths and weaknesses, this including yourself. What are your biggest strengths? What are your biggest weaknesses? At the start, I had said one of my superpowers is interviews, right? So I know my strengths. Then what would be my weakness? Then I jot it down. So based on my strengths, I would focus my strategies on communication on my strengths, because then I know once I focus on this, I will not get it wrong. So focusing on your strengths and being able to adjust into your weaknesses and leveraging on that also puts you at a different level. Now, the other thing is practice active listening. Again, cannot repeat that or emphasize that enough. That is such an important and very integral part of some of the strategies that you need into crafting your communication strategies, even in the corporate setting. Now, the other pointer is when you adapt to different situations. That means if you are talking to, say, corporates, how do you handle corporates? How do you talk to corporates when you're trying to create a projection or trying to create a profile for yourself? How do you handle yourself? How do you show people how you are? Then if you're talking to a CEO, how do you address a CEO? If you are talking to, say, you've been called to address a couple of students in a mentoring session, how do you address them? You have to learn how to adapt to different situations and different people at different spaces. Again, asking for feedback, that remains one of the very key moments and deciders of how your career is going to look like and how your personal brand is going to look like as well. Asking for feedback consistently remains such an integral part of crafting personal strategies and personal communications that it is almost front and center of everything. Because the thing about communication, it's a cycle. You have to get to give. It has always has to be two ends. You give something and someone has to come back and say, "Oh, Cynthia, I listened to you. This is how I think you should have done this. You did this really well, but also you should have adjusted to this other side. Maybe it would have helped, maybe it would have not." But that kind of feedback helps you to gap and become better at what you are doing. Now, one of the things that a lot of people will ask is, what does that look like when you're talking about um, corporate communication? Does that include being transparent? Does that include being honest? What is that, right? In the words of one Dalai Lama, he said, "A lack of transparency results in distrust and a deep sense of insecurity," because that means that the person that you're talking to may not trust what you're saying. I would give examples, but I'm a decent adult, so I will not. But good morning, Kenyans, good afternoon, Kenyans, and good evening, Kenyans. Transparency is such an integral part of communication because you don't want your brand or anything to do with you to be associated with distrust, dishonesty, lying, all these things. The minute you are associated with it, nobody will ever trust you. And trust is such a delicate matter. It's one of the core of communications and even brands. So when people talk about you and people are hearing about you and they're like, maybe you should work with Cynthia, someone goes back to, oh, but you remember that one time she lied about her numbers. But then you remember that one time when she lied about this. Remember that one time when she lied about that. No, you want to be transparent consistently because that is the decider of everything. So being open and honest in communication, this means being very transparent. And being transparent is very difficult. Very, very difficult. You want to save yourself. You want to look good all the time. But the truth of the matter is, we're all human and nobody is perfect. So you have to choose to be honest, even in that difficult moment. And one of the things that I've noticed is people can see when you are being honest and they know it is difficult. Oh my God, because we're all human, it is absolutely difficult. So when they notice that, then that means that you're doing really, really well in being honest. Now, the other thing is, of course, avoid jargon because nobody wants to hear big, complicated words that mean absolutely nothing to them. So you have to be able to be very transparent with that. Now, another thing that you have to practice, especially when it comes to transparency, maintaining transparency and engaging communication, is having a very clear and concise messaging. We always say less is more. That's why you'll find a lot of communications that, in the general sense, when clients and when, say, people like Safaricom, Pepsi, Coke, when they're trying to communicate, they will look for very simple liners that you can remember top of mind because they want to make their message so easy to understand that you don't have to keep repeating the same things over and over. So you have to make sure that you're doing that. Again, empathy and understanding remain core because at this point, especially in the era that we're in, where being able to incorporate a lot more divergent views of people is becoming very, very clear, then you have to also be the same. You have to include empathy and understanding when you're doing your communication in transparency. Of course, you have to remember that communication is a two-way street. Nipe nikupe, that's a Swahili word for saying, you give me, I give you, okay? So communication is a two-way street. That means take your feedback after you've taken it, act on it, and then ask whether the person that you're talking to has been is satisfied with what has been said. So you have to keep on that channel of communication. You got to keep it open. You have to make sure that the person that you're talking to is also talking back to you and you're having a clear communication. They will ask questions. They'll want to understand, and you have to prompt them like, if what I'm doing this, is it clear? Am I understanding? Are you understanding what I'm trying to say? If not, how can I make it better? If I can't make it better, how would you consider this communication to be done to you to be more effective? So those things are very, very important when you're practicing transparency in communication. Now, of course, clear that I have done, and regular and tailored communication. The thing with regular communication is it's providing consistent updates on the things that are happening around you and the things that you are doing. For leaders, when it comes to communication, you have to do it all the time. And I'll take you back to my very first slide that said, communication, usually it's the illusion that you think communication is happening, only to realize it genuinely is not happening. So you have to constantly make sure that if indeed communication is happening, then it has to come back to you, and you have to know that the person that you're talking to or talking with has actually understood it, and you have to tailor it to them so it makes sense to them exactly what you're trying to communicate. Again, if you're talking to an 8-year-old, and if you're talking to a 70-year-old, and if you're talking to a Gen Z, you're talking to a millennial, those are different ways of communicating to different generations. So you have to keep customizing that kind of thing to be able to reach the people that you need to talk to without feeling as if they're being alienated. Now, I love this image because it reminds me of what every crisis looks like. It's, how do I explain this? Like, you see how calm that person looks, or a funny, wonderful dog looks like? They're very, chill, very zen. I mean, the house is on fire, but, very zen. So it's going to slide us into one of the things that we're very keen on, which is techniques for managing communication during a crisis. Of course, if you are in Kenya, you already know we're in the middle of a crisis and it looks bad. It looks really, really bad. So one of the things you'll be asked is, then how are you able to have that conversation as a person who is in communication? Well, one of the things is having a rapid and swift action. You are not waiting 5 days to respond to anything. You're not waiting 2 days to wait. No, you are responding swiftly. It's not immediately, but you know you have to be very, very keen to make sure that no time is wasted. You have the right communication. You're saying the right things, and you've spoken to this. You've spoken to the matter at the center of the controversy or the center of the crisis. So rapid and swift action is very, very important. And all these things have to come very clearly. Now, the other thing is having proactive disclosure, right? This means you are providing information proactively rather than waiting for inquiries. I'll give an example. If you are the one who was handling, say, the fire that happened, you'd be, what happened even before media start throwing things at the government and throwing things at the school, then you start giving a presser immediately. And you want to do a presser every 3 hours, every 2 hours, giving updates, making sure that you are taking charge of the situation and allowing people to see that you are fully 100% in charge without covering anything and without looking like you're holding back on information. Now, the other thing that comes really, really well, and again, this has remained the most consistent thing, having empathy. What does that look like? That looks like you're expressing empathy. That means you acknowledge the impact of the crisis, especially on the affected individuals, the communities, and anyone who's been affected by it. The other thing is you have to offer apologies as well in the same measure. So it's offering and acknowledging the impact, but also apologizing if it's appropriate and taking responsibility for any wrongdoing. Again, I have mentioned taking responsibility. Now, the thing about centered communication is if you work in an organization that has multiple channels of communication, you want to shut all that down and come and agree, even if we have 17 channels, great, and we have 15 offices and 15 spokesmen, how do we do this? We congregate all together and say, okay, as all these 17 people, we're only going to give information from this point of channel or this centerpiece. Okay, so who is going to be? Is it Cynthia who's giving the information? Great. Then nobody else says anything. It has to be from Cynthia. This is a command center, and anything that is coming has to come in from there. And that's what centralized communication looks like. It's ensuring all communication is coordinated and is consistent throughout. It's not coming from different channels. No, it is very consistent. That means you have the control systems. Then when we talk about consistent messaging, that looks like you develop a very clear and concise key message to convey. That is on behalf of yourself, on behalf of your organization, on behalf of the committee, or on behalf of the person that you're representing during this crisis. It is very, very targeted, and it has to be a very clear message. Now, crisis, to be honest, one of the key things is always have a crisis communication strategy. That goes without saying. You must have a crisis communication strategy. Know who is the go-to person. Are they ready? Do you have a team that is ready, constantly on standby? Think of it as a designated survivor kind of team, where if anything happens, people jump in and they know this is what we need to do consistently. Do you have someone finding out what's happening? Do you have someone on the ground looking for facts? Do you have someone on the ground trying to figure out whether there's a history of this thing? How do you put it together? Do you have someone at the center of it taking charge? Crisis can make or break a person. And sometimes we say that is how you know whether an organization or a person is ready for their job or they're doing their job well. If they can handle a crisis, then you generally have a huge problem. So those are some of the basic things that you want to look at when you're handling crisis. Now, when it comes to some of the things that you're having conversations with when it comes to, for example, tailoring communications, right? So it might not necessarily be off the conversation when it comes to the crisis, but on a general, when you're having communications, then how do you tailor it to different audiences and measure that effectively? Well, that is quite easy, which I absolutely enjoy. I will not lie to you. I absolutely enjoy it. Now, let me give you an example of how that looks like. I run and manage a radio station, right? And I have 5 different shows in my station. I have the breakfast show that has Jeff Koinange and Patrick Igunza, and they speak to a more mature audience, right? Very, very mature, right? Think of it like the millennials, the Gen X moving a bit up, right? So that's a different demographic. And then we have Aziz's show that speaks to Gen Zs, very specific, right? So her music, her shows, her artists, all of them speak to a very different demographic from what the breakfast has. Immediately after her show, I have a show called The Rewind. They speak to they play a lot of old school music, very old school. It's called The Rewind. So you'll find a lot of 90s and 2000s throwbacks, complete throwbacks. That means it's very specific to millennials and a bit of Gen X, right? And then after that, we have the drive show, which is with Nico Thiambo, very lean back. It plays a lot more of African, Afrobeat, Amapiano, again, a different demographic, but still you can balance between the millennials and the Gen X's. So, how are you able to communicate to all these demographics? It's very easy. One of the things we did with Start Now, and we identified our key demographics. We're like, okay, we're talking to millennials. So how do we do that? These are the things that they like. So we start creating a persona. The persona for this show is a 22-year-old, or the persona for the millennial show that plays throwback is a 27-year-old or 32-year-old. Okay, it's a 32-year-old. What do they like to do? They play some throwbacks. They may drive their first car, or they're getting to their second car. They have a girlfriend, they're married, they have their first child. They live in that middle class, right? And they like to do some throwbacks. One of the things they're good at is doing brunches, having the road trips. They have no issue doing them changos. That means donating a few things here and there. They like to want to be associated with a certain lifestyle. So you have to identify your key demographic. And it has to be so precise that even if it requires for you to get into who they are, then that is the one thing you must do. You have to go and understand who exactly they are. The other thing is you have to determine their interests. As I said, figure out what do they do? How do they do it? What times are they doing? What do they do on Fridays? What do they do on Saturdays? What do they do on Sundays? So if I'm trying to communicate something like the new show on Showmax called Nai, right? So that particular show, lifestyle, fast moving, people who made it in life, right? And they made it in life while we all watched them. Then if those people are the target audience, then moving backwards, how do you curate that communication to ensure that your audiences actually engage? First stop, using the influencers themselves, social medias. Secondly, leveraging on digital to understand, what if we push certain content between 6 a.m., 12, 3 p.m., 6, and around 9, 10, right? Because if you've studied, then you know that's how they actually choose their channels, right? And there's certain peak hours for them consistently between IG, TikTok, and X. You can always tag around those ones. And also, depending on where they are, there are WhatsApp channels that you can actually leverage on. So that actually takes us into the appropriate channels that you want to use to talk about or to target your audiences, okay? Of course, there's the appropriate language. If you are trying to talk to one Jeff Koinange, I can tell you Ngumi Mbwekse is not the language. It will not get you anywhere, right? Goda Tena is generally, honestly, not it. Okay. So you have to adjust the language to the person and to the target that you actually want to talk to. And of course, access and assess their knowledge level. That may not sound genuine, but let me tell you, it actually helps because you want to understand whether are you talking to someone who has basic primary education? Have they gone to high school? Are they done their first degree? Are they a master's? Because I will tell you how you speak to Miguna will not be how you speak to someone who's just cleared high school. How you speak to Pierlo Lumumba is not how you address anybody else, right? So you have to understand all this demographics and be able to understand, okay, so this is the person I want to communicate this to. And in that case, if this is their level of education, then this is the best way, the best language to use. Now, the other, on that tailored communications, there was the question on measuring effectiveness, right? So there are certain ways to do it. You're either doing it quantitatively or you're doing it qualitatively. If you're doing it quantitatively, then one of the things is engaging metrics. What does engaging metrics look like? That is, you're tracking things like you track the matrix on open rates, you want to see the click-through rates, you want to shares, all those things that actually people care about. The other thing is doing surveys and polls, which are very, very important. And of course, that helps you even to gather feedback, which again, you can use a lot of devices and a lot of tools, including SurveyMonkey, to get that kind of thing. And one of the things that are very important, of course, is the customer satisfaction. Again, most of these are usually anonymous, and you can see a lot of people engage and say, yes, the customer service was great. We can always make it better. How would you suggest we do it? And if you've done a lot of buying and purchasing on via Java, right? If you went directly to Java, they used to have that pop-up all the time, just to try and make their services better, because they want to learn, how can I improve the quality for my audience and for my key target audience. Now, when it comes to qualitative, this comes to things like focus groups, conducting interviews, and even observations, right? It does sound a little strange. I'm like, you just sit and observe people, but you can tell that how people interact with your product and how people interact with you and how people interact with your leadership, how people interact with your organization will show the kind of impact it has. And more importantly, you have to constantly listen and pay attention, right? One of those things includes what we call the A/B test. This is just basic experiment with different approaches and determine which is the most effective, okay? That is also very, very key. If you're trying to pass on a message, you want to make sure that you're trying as many options as possible and see which one works best for you, again, because then you have analyzed your demographic, see how well they engage. Do they engage with the SurveyMonkey? Do they do focus groups? Which of this will work for you? Then you just narrow down on that. Now, this is probably my best, because equipping yourself is very, very important. So then how are you equipping yourself? And what are some of the things that you need to do to be able to improve your corporate communication skills? One thing that goes without saying, you have to read. Whether you like it or you don't, you have to read. You have to constantly read to be able to reach the audience, to be able to learn, to be able to understand what is happening in the world consistently. And the thing with communications is there are things that are coming up every single day. So you have to really constantly read. Sometimes one of my friends is a graduate. She's a doctorate graduate. She's called Dr. Sylvia. Dr. Sylvia is very keen on reading. And one of the things she kept insisting is, Cynthia, I want to read a book. But you see, by the time that book is published, something different has happened. So I read papers, I read published papers, I read research papers. Those things are consistently churning out. They're coming out from doctors who are trying to understand different things that are happening across multiple fields. So for her, she's constantly on research papers, okay? So I would advise on the same. Look for research papers, look for books as well, because they'll leverage, you'll learn something new, and it also helps with your communication skills moving forward. And the other thing is online courses and workshops. The Coursera's, the Udemy's, those won't go without saying. LinkedIn as well has a fantastic system to ensure that you are learning within it, and you even get your certificates, of course. So this is one of the biggest things. So LinkedIn Learning, Coursera, Udemy, wide range of courses on communication, on leadership, on public speaking, on you name it, they have it. Now, the other thing which I'm very keen on is seeking feedback and joining a professional group. One of those professional groups would be the PRSK, which I'm a member of, and Noella is a member of, and I believe the last speaker is also a member of. Joining a professional group helps you interact with fellow professionals in your field, and they will share nuggets of wisdom and information that can only be found within that particular profession. And you want to know what is happening consistently. The same way if you're in PRSK, that the Public Relations Society of Kenya, you know that there's a bill that is going to be debated in Parliament about the profession that is PRSK, right? How do people join it? what would be the markings of a decent PRSK member. What do they need to do? What do they need to do a professional paper? Do they need to do a course? What and how can you then be an associated member of a group like PRSK that will allow you to be recognized across board in government and outside of the country and in Africa as a whole? So those are some of the things that you want to do. And of course, professional organizations that I had mentioned, there are people who do, it's called Toastmasters. There's Toastmasters, there's organizations like BNIs and Rotary. All those things are networks, but more importantly, they help you with your communication skills, because at the center of every organization is your capability to communicate what you want, be able to talk to the other person to get to be assisted, and more importantly, to show yourself as a key master when it comes to communication. Now, if you're a Gen Z, I have a feeling you have no idea what this is, and it's okay. Imagine, it's fine. We shall not judge you. Nobody's judging us either. It's like being asked what a floppy disk is. It's just sad. We'll just move on. Okay. So now, at one point, yeah, they were just somebody, and now they're just somebody that we used to know, which is sad. Okay. So what does the emerging trends and technologies impacting corporate communication look like? One is the digital transformation. Oh my God, the madness that has been digital transformation has been insane. I mean, 1 minute you're using a floppy disk, then next it's, cloud computing. You're like, what, can you just give us a minute? Next thing you know, it's AI, and things are moving fast, and you want to be able to tap into these things. So the digital transformation has been so huge. Back in the day, when we were talking about communication, it was always, of course, you have to put things on the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation and on the newspaper, and you're good to go. You've communicated all you need. Right now, you have to communicate on email, on a website, on WhatsApp, on social media. There are multiple channels, and at the same time, you have to include some of those traditionals, which is face-to-face, right? It's insane, but also it's very exciting because new things are coming up every single day. Now, another thing is sustainability communication. And this is being able to connect with sustainability initiatives and to be able to achieve what is keen on building trust and reputation. So sustainability is one of the big things right now, okay? So climate change, sustainability, and they don't sound like they should be in a communication class. But the funny thing is, they are front and center, because most organizations I know are starting a sustainability desk. They're starting a sustainability office, because they want to know, is my organization sustainable? Is it looking around and saying, within my community, how am I making this business sustainable? Okay, within the community, how can I make it better? Not just for myself, but for those around me. Is it a safe space for them? Do they feel like, as an organization, we're friends? If you're an individual, am I a friend of my environment that I am in? Am I making it conducive? Those things are so, so crucial. Now, the other thing is diversity and inclusion communication. Of course, this means you have to address very difficult things, right? Very, very difficult. Are you in your workplace? Are you addressing diversity? Are you including those that feel marginalized in whatever shape or form, however that presents itself? Are you creating a space that fosters more inclusion than it did before, even for you as a person? Are those spaces, are there certain things that you currently are now open to that allow you to have conversations with people that you normally would not be talking to? That's what diversity and inclusion looks like. And of course, chat boxes and virtual assistants taking over everywhere. You will talk to, I'll give an example, like where I work, our IT prompts are now on WhatsApp. So I will have my problem, I will report the issue that I'm having in minutes. Next thing I know, I am talking to a bot. They've resolved my problem. They've raised a ticket. Someone comes and fixes it, and then we're done. I don't have to keep shouting, IT, someone call IT. I don't have to get to the extension. Like, somebody call IT. My computer has no. We've already moved on and we're moving really, really fast. Virtual assistants is another thing that has moved on really, really fast. If you're a person of influence and you're creating your personal brand and you're in corporate and you cannot be able to have somebody with you consistently and you feel like you're missing out on certain things, have you missed an appointment? Are you feeling like you need someone to put your business together? You can have anybody from across the world be your virtual assistant and ensure that you do not miss the crucial things in your life. They set up things for you, set up meetings for you, make calls, and assemble things consistently for you. Now, I'll give an example of what happened this afternoon. I got a call from South Africa, from a firm that handles a Kenyan tech and cybersecurity manager, and they were seeking for an interview. And you can imagine we're both in the country, but the person that is calling from South Africa. It's incredible how right now we're kind of just one big globe. So it doesn't matter where you are. You want to make sure that you are taking advantage of all these emerging trends. Again, they feel like they're threats, but if you ask me, they're probably the best thing that ever happened. And we are probably in the best of eras when these things are actually emerging and you can leverage on some of them. Now, of course, big data goes without asking. I mean, that's probably one of the most obvious things. That means you're getting consumer and customer insights. You're getting information about the people that you specifically talk to. If you only want to address or you want to get data about 17-year-olds who consume certain drinks at certain times of the day, you can get that. If you want to talk to women in their 20s, right? A 22-year-old Kenyan woman making a decision about money, right? They earn a salary of this and this. How do they spend their money? You will get such detailed information with big data. It is incredible, okay? I know a friend of mine does, I wish I can remember the name of the organization. I'll look it up again. He's been teaching big data for a while now, almost 10 years now, 8, 9, 10 years, thereabout. And they are doing really well. And every day you can see the kind of journey he's taking and the kind of passion he has trying to tell people the importance of leveraging on big data. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, of course, that marks the end of my presentation. I'm hoping it's within time, right? It's a minute to 45. And the reason why I do that is because if there are any questions, I'd love to answer them in person to make sure that we are good to go. But if they are none, of course, any questions, I'll let Noeline take over from here.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Cynthia, for the presentation, taking the time to actually and to push you back on screen, just so everybody knows on stage, just so that everybody knows how to reach you. So this is how you can reach Cynthia, and I'll also put it on the comment section in LinkedIn so that you're able to find her quickly and you can connect with her easily.
Yeah.
So Cynthia, I'm just thinking of real life application of corporate communication and doing it strategically. And I'm just wondering, like, I'll give you an example, real life example that I've experienced. Somebody asked me to run an analysis for them, inventory ended and I did it. It just never left my outbox. And this person sent me an email, polite reminder, and I was like, why are you polite reminding me? I thought I sent this thing. So I kind of dismissed it because, like, you should be able to find it in your email. The mistake was mine. Then they sent me another email after a few days, and they said to me, unless by a mishandling of our inbox, you have not sent this, which I found so funny. So funny. It was passive aggressive and funny at the same time.
Yes.
And I went back and I checked and I was like, okay, fine. I'm actually the one who's in the wrong. I should have sent this through. And I think that's a good example of how we can leverage corporate communication as an art, even with how we interact with each other and how we talk to each other.
Yes.
Because this person was essentially telling me, what gives? It's not in my inbox. Unless I mishandled my inbox. So how do you mishandle your inbox? Passive aggressive, but the point got home. So yes. I'm thinking of, in different situations, classic one. I must ask, because you're an SME in corporate communication. Yes. What is the appropriate way to start our communication? Is it hi Cynthia, or dear Cynthia, or what is the appropriate way to do it? keeping in mind the time of day and the level
Yes.
of leadership of the person that you're talking to. What is the
Okay.
appropriate way to?
So one of the things I'd be asking is, what is your end goal? I mean, and of course, this we're doing on a hypothetical. What is your end goal for the communication, so that I know how we can handle it?
It could be I'm passing
Hmm.
on information, or it could be I am prompting this person to give me information, or I'm
Right.
just giving an requesting for it. Yeah.
Okay. So for me, I will go with hello. Then Cynthia. My name is, very clear introduction.
Mm.
Then explain what you do, and then I'll give you reason for reaching out to them. That is very, very clear. So, and I'll take it from my personal experience. A lot of people will say hi, then leave it at that, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do with it?
Mm.
That is usually going to be my question. Okay, so you've said hi, what do I do with it? Do I say hi? Then okay, if I say hi, then you'll ask me, how are you? I'm like, listen, bro, can we get to the point? Just, can we get to the point, And I think one of the things I'm very grateful about LinkedIn is it has taught people how to get to the point.
Mm.
Okay, it's very clear, it's very concise. I mean, it even has pre-prompts for you to be able to say, hello Cynthia, my name is, or hello Miss Cynthia, my name is, this is what I'd like to for us to discuss. Now I host a lot of guests on the breakfast show,
Mhm.
ambassadors, members of parliament, August House, deputy presidents, and so on and so forth. And you have to be so specific about the communication because they don't have time to
Yeah.
do the back and forth of the highs and buys and good days. How is the weather on that time? It's like, listen, my weather is fine. What do you want? And even by the time you're writing what do you want, I'm already exhausted. Okay. I have tons of emails, tons of messages. You have to learn how to get to the point. Okay. So my message usually reads, hi, hello, my name is Cynthia Mwangi. I am the head of Radio Hot 96. I also produce the breakfast show with Jeff Koinange and Patrick Igunza. This week, we are handling, say, the recurrent school fires, and we were looking to reach out to you to handle this conversation based on the following key points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you're available on this day, kindly let me know. Or if you have a PA that I can speak to, kindly let me know so that we can liaise with them and see whether we can have you on that show. I appreciate it and I look forward to your response. Signed, Cynthia Mwangi. It's so clear that you will not mistake my communication for anything.
Yeah. I like that. I think it really saves a lot of time. I am with you on the high. I feel like
Yeah.
high, and it's a corporate version of otherwise. How do I respond to that? I totally agree with you on this.
What do I
Then,
do with a house?
mm, and another way is like I really need to find out what is when somebody tells you otherwise. What is my response supposed to be? Do I say otherwise, bar, neverwise, two wise?
I, I
What do I say?
I think that's a very mountain conversation. Yeah, very specific to the people from the mountain, and I don't know why we do that. I
Our
genuinely
people, eh?
cannot tell you. Like I can't tell you. Yeah.
Alrighty. Another one I want to ask is how do you say to the other person now, or
Hmm.
I'm communicating as an individual,
Yes.
forget my case of saying to the other
Mhm.
person, I asked you for this thing 2 days ago, you've not yet given it to me. How do I say that nicely?
Nicely. Yeah.
Mm. But I still put the point
Um,
across.
yes. So I think the way to go about it would be, hi, I'm just making a quick follow up on X and X and X. We had a conversation about it 2 days ago. I just wanted to know
Mm.
whether you have it ready for me. And if you haven't it ready, when can I have it ready?
Uh,
Yes.
very brief. I like it. Very, very brief and very on
Yes,
point.
and also it
Mm.
it what it does is it hits certain pointers. One, whether you've done the job. Two, if you've done the job, when can I get it? Three, if you
Mhm.
haven't done it, give me a point or at a time at which I can get it.
You're going
Yes,
to receive it. Flip it.
precisely.
Now you're asking for a deadline extension.
Okay, for a deadline extension, how you put it is, hello, Noella. I am reaching out regarding the following assignment that you have given me. This is how far I have gone, and kindly allow me, this is how far I've gone with my assignment. I'd like to request for an extension of time so that I can do the following. Then you say this and this and this and this are the things that are pending. This is the reason why they're pending, and this is when you will get your assignment or the kind of work when I will send the assignment. If this is okay with you, kindly give me until Wednesday, then you indicate the time. Wednesday 11, Wednesday 1 p.m., you will have it.
Good stuff. All right.
Yes.
How do I say, or how do we say in appropriate language again, how we're communicating? I have no idea what I'm doing. Send help.
Like, just send help. Okay. Now, there was an assignment that I was given, which is quite interesting. There's an assignment I was given by my boss, and I did it. But then in one of the subcategories, I wasn't sure whether what I had done was the right thing, right? So what I did was I sent the work, then at the bottom I said, for clarity's sake, kindly confirm that this and this and this is what you had asked and whether this is the appropriate response. If it's not, kindly give me time to be able to align with what your expectations were.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. Very, I like it. Very nice. How do you say, I messed up? Things are thick.
I messed up, things are thick. I messed up, things are thick. I don't know why the word misconstrue is just popping out of my head. It needs to stop. It needs to stop. So I messed up is, you would say, dear Noeline, following the brief that you gave me, certain, what's the word? There's a word. Oh my God, how is it slipping through my mind? Ni kama makosa ilifanyika.
Yeah, what's up, Gogo?
For makosa ilifanyika, it will be, so there's another word for mistake. I don't know why it slipped my mind right now, but there's another word for mistake. Yes, thank you. So an error was made on this particular, let's say you haven't paid your supplier, right? They'll say an error was made during the requisition of this particular supplier's money, and I take full blame of it. These are the actions that I have taken to remedy it. My sincere apologies. It will not happen again.
Nice. Very nice. Yeah. Taking responsibility at the same time.
Precisely.
Alrighty. How do you say umenibo? Like in very nice English, like
Am I doing it on email? And why am I saying umenibo?
You know, there are emails you receive and you look at it and you're like, but I've already given you this information. I was very clear. You're asking me for this thing again. It's almost like you want me to confirm and reconfirm the thing that I've already told you. And you look at those emails and you're like, is it that you're not getting it? Or are you, what are we doing?
Okay. So how you say it would be, dear Noeline, as shared above, I have highlighted the key communication that you needed. If you feel as if you need more clarity on it, kindly let me know. But as per your request, I have answered it. I am available, however, to walk you through it step by step to ensure that we are not miscommunicating on it.
That is so polite. That is so polite. The alternative would be where? On Teams, what is it? What do you want? What are you not getting? That is so nice.
Why
is very professional way to put it.
Yeah, you got to try. I mean, sometimes you're like, sio lazima, but then you have to remain professional to it. You have to be very,
Yeah.
very professional. Yeah.
And maintain the relationships. That's very, very true. So thank
100%,
you.
because
Thank you
then
for
you will need
engaging
them
me on that.
tomorrow.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Yes.
much for engaging on that. I was just thinking about it as you were speaking, and what came to mind were some of the emails I receive, and I'm like,
Blood of Nebuchadnezzar.
okay. And then again, I'm like, well, hold up. Do I also send such emails? And the person on the other side has moments of what is wrong with this person?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it happens.
That was
Sometimes you
very,
don't even notice it. Yeah, sometimes you don't notice it, but it happens. It happens a lot.
mm. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for
Yes,
responding
you're
to the many,
welcome.
many questions.
Oh, no, no,
And
no.
thank
It's okay.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And
No problem.
the pointers and the PowerPoint presentation, it really, really helps to get the conversation. And I find that you've actually answered all of the questions that were in the pre-reading preparation for this mentorship session. Thank you so, so
Right.
much.
You're
Yeah.
welcome.
Do you have any parting remarks, Cynthia?
Any parting remarks? Okay. My parting remarks would be corporate communication, and even for individual communication, it's a learning process consistently. So you'll always need to remain on top of your game. And that means consistently practicing, consistently learning to ensure that you're on top of your game, and even trying out things that people haven't. That means you have to go out of your way to try your very best to learn something new, because you're only as good as your last job. And that was, as far as this particular era is concerned, that's not good enough.
Mhm. Yeah, that's very true. You have to
Yeah,
keep evolving. That's very true.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. I appreciate you
You're
taking the time.
welcome.
I appreciate you joining us as the guest to mentor this week. Thank you so, so much.
You're welcome. Thank you
One
so
last
much for
question,
having me.
Cynthia.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
What's your favorite book?
My favorite book. Um, that would have to be Who Thought This Was a Great Idea?
Okay,
Yes.
write
Who
that
thought
down.
this was who thought
Mm-hmm.
this was a great idea? It's
Mm-hmm.
by, oh my God, I think I've forgotten her name. She was the chief of staff and
Mm-hmm.
at White House under Obama. And it was
Mm-hmm.
such a brilliant book. Reading and watching how she did things behind the scenes, it was incredible. She was in charge of a lot of scheduling of his tours,
Mm-hmm.
the campaigns, and the conversations that we're having consistently. And being able to see that kind of life and the kind of journey
Mm-hmm.
she took, both personally and professionally, it was, for me, it was incredible. So, Who Thought That Was a Good Idea, for me, is probably one of the best books I've read.
Alrighty, I'm writing it down on the comment section right now so that the audience can be able
Okay.
to catch it and to get a
Uh-huh.
copy of the book. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much. We have gotten to the end of our mentorship session for this week. Gleaned a lot from you, Cynthia. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank
And now
you.
we'll say bye, everyone. Have a fantastic balance of day. Good evening. We'll see you next week.